Alright, so here are some examples of reciprocal trig functions, that's secant, cosecant, and cotangent. I'm going to run through number 2. This is one we did in class already, but I'm just going to run through so you can understand the process. So in this right triangle, we have all three sides, okay? And if this is the angle, we know that this is the opposite side. We know that this is the adjacent side. We know that this is the hypotenuse. Okay? If we're looking for cosecant, what we want to remember is that the cosecant is equivalent to 1 over sine, okay? And then using SOHCAHTOA, right, so this is something to memorize. Okay, SOHCAHTOA, we know that sine of theta is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So we need to find the opposite of the hypotenuse. Here we got 12 as the opposite. We have 15 as the hypotenuse. So that's what sine is. But they're not asking for sine, they're asking for cosecant, and cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So we're going to flip this, and the cosecant of theta equals 15 over 12. Okay? And reducing that, the cosecant is 5 over 4. Okay. So the other type is, well, what if you don't have all three sides? So in number 3 here, we're still looking for cosecant, but we don't have all three sides. If this is the angle, we're missing the opposite side. We have the adjacent side, and we have the hypotenuse. Just like in number 2, the cosecant is the reciprocal trig function of sine, so 1 over sine, and we know that sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Right, so we still need the opposite and hypotenuse, but this time we don't have the opposite. They don't give it to us. So what we have to do here is we have to do the Pythagorean theorem in order to find that third side. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You can put in 20 for a, so 20 squared plus b squared, which is our opposite side, equals 25 squared. Okay? You have to make sure that you remember that the hypotenuse is always c. So 20 squared is 400 plus b squared, and 25 squared, 625. Alright, you're going to subtract 400 from both sides, and b squared is equal to, let's say, 625 minus 400 is 225. Alright, realize that you don't have b yet, right? You have to take the square root of both sides, so you have to take the square root of b and the square root of 225, and so b is equal to 15. Okay? Realize again that you're not done, right? All you've done is we've found this opposite side to be 15, and now we can plug into this sine function. So sine of theta equals the opposite side, which is 15, over the hypotenuse side, which is 25. Because they're looking for cosecant now, we want to take this reciprocal and say the cosecant of theta then is 25 over 15, and this can be reduced, so 25 divided by 5 and 15 divided by 5, you get 5 over 3. Okay? Alright, and the last kind I want to show you is when you have a reciprocal trig function and you're looking for a different trig function. Okay? And the one that I want to highlight is number 12. Okay? So number 12, you have tangent of theta and you're looking for cosecant of theta. So tangent of theta we know from SOHCAHTOA, remember you have to memorize this, SOHCAHTOA, that tangent is opposite over adjacent. Therefore, we have the opposite and we have the adjacent, but we don't have the hypotenuse. If you were to draw the triangle, it would look like this. Okay, theta here, the square root of 15 would be on the opposite side, and the 15 would be on the adjacent side. We don't know what the hypotenuse is. Why does it matter? Well, if we're looking for cosecant, we know that cosecant of theta is 1 over sine of theta, and we know that sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse, and therefore we do need the hypotenuse. So let's go ahead and use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse. then we can find sine, which will help us find cosecant. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A is 15, b is the square root of 15, and then we don't know what c is. Right? Alright, so 15 squared, let me just do some work up here. 15 squared is 225. The square root of 15 squared is just 15 because those are inverse operations. That equals c squared. 225 plus 15 is 240. And for right now, just for our purposes, I just want to take this. We need to take the square root of that, right? After we add these, square root of both sides. I'm just going to leave it like a square root for this moment. We'll increase the rigor a little bit later. But if c equals the square root of 240, okay, we can then find what sine is. So sine of theta equals the opposite side, which is the square root of 15, over the square root of 240, and then the reciprocal of that, cosecant of theta equals the square root of 240 over the square root of 15. Okay? And yes, that can be simplified. Yes, you can take this and break down these roots a little bit, right? But we're just going to stick with finding the cosecant for right now.